Good afternoon, everybody. This is Mark Brookshire at StockTrak. I am only expecting a half dozen or so people today. So as you join, I'm going to unmute you in case you'd like to ask a question. I generally find that if I have more than 10 people, I need to keep everybody muted. Then we use the little chat or QA buttons on this meeting. But when I have less than 10, I'm going to try to unmute everybody so you can interrupt me while I'm doing the presentation. So I'm going to give it just another minute or two just to see, because we're expecting about 5 or 6 people. And if anybody wants to introduce themselves, I'd love to hear where you're from and what you teach, and if you're currently using StockTrak, or if you're just thinking about using StockTrak.
Well, I'll start out. My name is Dr. Dwight Ham, and I teach at the Masters University in Santa Clarita, California. And I have actually used StockTrak for a number of years.
Okay.
Going back probably 15 years, 16 years.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of changes in StockTrak, and this is where I have to confess I pretty much, use the simulations for the students, and it gets them all excited. But I've never used StockTrak for their educational, their webinars, and so I want to do that this year. I want to kind of break away from a textbook, which I think sometimes gets a little bit too dry and too theoretical. And not enough instruction. So that's why I'm in this seminar, is to learn more.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anybody else want to introduce themselves? And then Shariar Shari, I'm trying to unmute you, and your little icon is just spinning, so I'm not sure why that's happening. But on this Zoho meeting, there's a chat and QA. So I've got 2 screens up. So I'm going to do my presentation on one screen, and then every once in a while I got to glance up and see if anybody is asking questions in the chat or the QA.
Will we be able to get a copy of this when it's done?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's just 4:02, so I'm going to get started slowly in case some people are joining late. But my name is Mark Brookshire. I'm the founder of StockTrak. The story is, over 30 years ago, I was getting an MBA at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Georgia. I loved math. I loved the stock market. And I was fortunate enough, when I was in high school, my dad had given me $2,000 in a brokerage account and had introduced me to the stock market. And I just became fascinated with it ever since. So I started trading or investing when I was a junior in high school. And then at Georgia Tech, taking the graduate investments class, all we did was read Bodie, Kane, and Marcus. It was a 1,000-page textbook. And I kept teasing my professor, hey, why don't you give us $1 million of monopoly money and let us pretend that we work on Wall Street. And let's see who can have the highest portfolio value at the end of the semester. And that professor at Georgia Tech said, Mark, I'm too lazy to keep track of all the stock. So then I naturally said, well, if I wrote a stock tracking program, could we use it next semester? And he said, Mark, sure, I'd love to see what you could come up with. And I spent 1.5 years writing a virtual trading code, working out the agreements with the exchanges, working out the data feeds. And I hate to say it, that I launched this in 1990. So that was 35 years ago, before the internet. And StockTrak started off as a 1-800-STOTRAK brokerage that students would call, and we would trade stocks at end of day prices. And my brokerage office was open from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, so I just want to make sure I am sharing a PowerPoint presentation that says track simulations. Is that what everybody is seeing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I've set this up for 30 minutes. So I'm going to kind of go quickly, but please interrupt me at any time with questions. So most of you know StockTrak, or we started out as a virtual investing and portfolio management tool. And then about 10 or 12 years ago, we developed a personal finance simulation. I'm going to spend just a little bit of time on that because I think most people here are interested in our virtual trading tool. And so today I'm going to explain the functionality of StockTrak's simulation. I'm going to show you the newest features and share some best practices to give you some ideas of how other professors are using StockTrak successfully in various classes. So let's just jump right in. And in case you didn't know, StockTrak is not our only product. We also have Personal Finance Lab and How the Market Works, which are 2 sites for high school students. You know about StockTrak.com for colleges. We also white label our platform, and we have over 100 universities that are taking a white label or a site license version of StockTrak. I'll show you that in a minute. And then we have a consumer education portal, Wall Street Survivor. And then we have about 30 corporate education partners around the world that white label either our virtual trading engine, our content, or our personal budgeting game. Okay. And I see we've got one more person. Edson just joined us. So please, nice to meet you, Edson. Okay. So here's the heart of what I want to talk about. You know, as Dwight said at the beginning, StockTrak has changed a lot over the years. And I have found that as we introduce more and more features, professors don't always pay attention to what the new features are. So I really want to talk about the new features that have been added in the last few years. But for those of you that are just thinking of using StockTrak for the first time, I'm going to cover some of the basics. And the basic is just this first one. The idea with StockTrak is that you can set up a trading contest for your students. You can give them $100,000, $1 million, $100 million in virtual money. If you're outside the US, you want to give them pounds, euros, yen, and we have about 50 different currencies that your account can be denominated in. And then we set up a virtual trading period and a contest for your students. And you can create an assignment to help students fully explore the functionality of the site. And what this is now you can say, students, in the first 2 weeks, I want you to buy 1 US stock, I want you to buy 1 US bond, I want you to buy a mutual fund. I want you to use a market order and a limit order. And I want you to watch these 5 videos about how to use the StockTrak site, what the difference is between a market order and a limit order. And you just set up an assignment, and that gives the students a task. So when they log in, they're going to see what the assignment is, and they're going to be able to complete the assignment that you just gave them. And they'll get feedback if they did it or not. And then you as the professor will be able to log in, view the assignments, and say, okay, of my 30 students, 28 of you did exactly what I told you to do. Congratulations. You other 2, you know, you only did half of what I've asked. So you can create assignments that keep track of what the students are doing on the platform to facilitate grading. Some professors just create one big assignment and say, okay, over the next 12 weeks or 16 weeks, however long your trading period ends, I want you to do 20 US stock trades. I want you to do 5 international trades. I want you to trade 5 call options, 2 put options, write a covered call, write a naked put, trade a futures contract, trade a future option, and trade a crypto if you want to add cryptos to the account. So the webpage will keep track of all that. As professors have gotten more and more used to the assignment features, they are making it more granular. So instead of doing one 16-month assignment, whether it's the first 2 weeks or the first 4 weeks, you can have a series of assignments. And that way you can more or less micromanage what you want your students to do on the site and then grade them accordingly if they're doing it. Okay, so those assignments, it's a great feature. If you haven't looked at it, you need to consider it. And they are self-grading. as the web page keeps track of, did the students do everything that you asked them to do? And let me talk about the security types when you're setting up your contest. We have US stocks, US ETFs, US mutual funds. We have US bonds with corporate and treasury. We have US options. We have futures, future options. We have Forex, spot commodities, and cryptos. I know professors seem to have a love-hate relationship with cryptos. So if you don't want to turn them on, you don't have to. Okay. In fact, with all of these security types, if you're trying to micromanage your students a little bit more, and you know that in the month of September, you're only going to be talking about stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, and bonds, when you create your contest on StockTrak, just enable those security types. You can always come back on October 1st and turn on options and futures. And then maybe the last 2 weeks, you can turn on cryptos and Forex if you get to that point in your investment class. So this website is flexible to allow you to control what your students have access to week over week or month to month. And just to be clear, with the deals that I've worked out with the exchanges, the US markets are real-time bid-ask pricing. So the stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, of course, are end-of-day NAV. Bonds, the options, futures, and future options, and Forex and crypto are all real-time bid-ask pricing. Unfortunately, going global with my data feed, the European, Asian markets, Canadian markets, South American markets, they are very pricey to get data. And so some of those feeds might be just delayed, or they might just be end-of-day pricing. So I'm not going to lie. Not everything is real time. Everything in the US is real time. European, Asian, and other markets are delayed or end-of-day pricing. One of the features that was added about 6 years ago was trade notes. And trade notes is something that you can require or not require when you create your contest. And that simply is that when students are in the order entry screen, they're going to buy 100 shares of Apple, a note would pop up, or a blank field would pop up and say, what is your trade note? And the students are forced to write an explanation as to why they're making that trade. So that then becomes etched in stone, and it becomes a great learning experience, because 6 weeks from now, the students are going to forget why they bought Apple today. But they're going to be able to go back and look at their trade note, diary, and so they're going to be able to see exactly why they did that trade.
Now, do we have to, excuse me interrupting, but do we have to flip switch for trade notes, or is that automatic?
Have to what? Trade notes?
Do we have to turn on the element that?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be in the setup then?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for that question.
Yeah, and then that creates the trade diary. It's etched in stone, so the students can't come back later and edit it to make them look smarter. So if they bought Apple today and Apple plummets over the next 6 weeks, they can't change their explanation. And you, as the professor, when you log in to StockTrak and go to your admin reports, you can print off their trade diaries from each of the students also. So it just facilitates the StockTrak project and makes it easier for professors to implement StockTrak in the class. So you've got the assignments. Those assignments are self-grading. You've got trade notes. So now the students are forced to have an explanation of why they're making each of those trades as they do it. And it just becomes a great learning tool. Over the years, professors have talked about evaluating the students on some risk-adjusted returns, saying, everybody focuses on percentage return. And they'll say, but Mark, I get people who construct great portfolios, they do a great job of beating the S&P by 2 and 3% over 8 to 10 weeks, but they might be in the middle of the pack of their class ranking. So some students' natural tendency is at the end of the semester to sell off their well-diversified portfolio and take a risky position on options and futures and try to win the class. And so professors have said, Mark, you need to add some risk-adjusted returns So you can have your class ranking be percentage return. We can calculate the Sharpe ratio for your students. We can calculate the Jensen alpha or the trainer ratio. So now it becomes a much more challenging exercise for the students to say, okay, well, how do I get my Sharpe ratio up? And it's funny that classes that choose to evaluate their students on Sharpe ratio, the students call our office at the end of the semester and say, hey, winning on the percentage return, but I'm not doing so great on Sharpe ratio. How do I get my Sharpe ratio to go up in the next 2 weeks? So another great learning experience for the students to, to understand what the Sharpe ratio is and really what it means. So the interesting features, and generally what we find is that professors that might be teaching like an intro to investments, they use StockTrak on percentage return. But if you're teaching a portfolio management class or a more advanced class, that's the time to turn on the Sharpe ratio calculation. So now the students are familiar with StockTrak, they know the basics, how to build a portfolio, but then now give them this extra caveat or extra criteria of doing well in a Sharpe ratio really changes their thinking. Other things that we have done for StockTrak is a pre-populated portfolio. So one of the unique ways that a professor uses StockTrak is he treats the students as fund managers for Fidelity. Students come into the class and he says, welcome students, you've been hired by Fidelity. What you're going to do over the next 18 months is you're going to be competing against the Fidelity Magellan Mutual Fund. And your goal is to outperform the Fidelity Magellan and see if you're smarter than the people on Wall Street. So that professor will create a portfolio and take the top 50 positions with the appropriate weights of the Fidelity Magellan Fund. And all the students on the first day, they have their portfolio. 90% is invested. They've got 10% cash. They've got the top 50 positions of the Fidelity Magellan Fund. And their goal is to, for the rest of the semester, is to try to outperform the Wall Street, the fund managers for that fund. So that becomes an interesting project for the students, and it's a real world project. Another thing that professors are doing is saying, Mark, we want to treat our students like they're brokers at the local brokerage office. So we create a scenario where you have a client that's either 25 years old with $100,000, you might have a client that's 40 years old with $1 million, or you might have a trust that has $10 million in it. Your job is to manage it under these certain criteria that the account holder requests. And so there's a little scenario that's written up. The students might choose who their client is and then build a portfolio, that they think is appropriate for that client. And then what the professors can do is come in and say, maybe on the 4th week, after the students have built the portfolio, they shock the portfolio with a cash withdrawal or a cash deposit. So the professor might go in and add $100,000 cash to the account. So the students spend the first 4 weeks building the portfolio that they want. Now the client's happy. The client deposits another $100,000, and so now each student is forced to rebalance their portfolio with the additional cash. And then maybe 4 weeks later, they can withdraw $300,000 from all the accounts and say, hey, you're doing such a great job. The client's so happy, but he decided to buy a house. And so he made a $300,000 withdrawal. So now what do you do to your portfolio? So that's one way to use these cash deposits and withdrawals. We have other professors that say, no, I want this to be automated. When the students come in the first week of class, I want them just to have $10,000. Right? I want them to treat this like this is their real money. So they might start them with a low cash balance of $10,000 the first week, make the students feel that it's reasonable, have them go buy a couple of stocks, a couple of bonds, maybe put a little bit of money into a mutual fund. And then they can set it up that every Monday, an additional $5,000 or $10,000 gets deposited into the account. So now over the next 10 weeks, their $10,000 portfolio will grow to $100,000. now the students are forced to pay attention to the portfolio week after week. If they find that they're not investing their cash, they might be falling behind in the class rankings if the market. So now they're really paying attention. We're teaching them dollar cost averaging, which I think is a great lesson for the students to walk away with. So weekly cash deposits, shock deposits. Yeah. Somebody have a question? Yeah, I do see that we've had a couple of people join in late, so I'm going to enable everybody to speak, and then so don't hesitate to interrupt me. But if you don't have anything to say, you can mute your mic. That would be great. But I want to try to keep this as an open conversation. The last thing on here is buy and hold accounts. So some professors have said, Mark, StockTrak's great. We love all the security types, the options and futures. The students go crazy with that. I want them to explore everything that the site has to offer. I want them to explore everything that we're talking about in our investments class. But I want them to have a second account where I want them to treat it like it's their Warren Buffett account. I want them to have $100,000, and I only want them to make a maximum of 30 trades. So I want them to have a second account. And so when you're creating your StockTrak class, you can create your main active account, but then at the bottom you could say add a buy and hold account. And now the students, when they log in, they'll have two accounts that they can toggle back and forth. So one is an active account that might be limited or might allow 400 trades, and the buy and hold account is limited to 30 trades over the course of the semester. So now they're having fun being super active in their 400 trade account, but they're also have a separate account trying to take the Warren Buffett approach. And if you do that, I strongly encourage you to have different dollar amounts. So if you want them to be super active, maybe you give them 100,000 in that account, and the buy and hold account, maybe give them $1 million in that account. That way, when the students toggle back and forth between the two accounts, they don't accidentally make a trade in one account that they thought was going into the other. So just the easiest way is to have separate dollar amounts, and it will register very quickly which account they're in.
So are we encouraging the students with create an active account? You said 400 trades. That seems like an enormous number of trades for a 16-week course, with some students being novices and don't even know where to begin at the beginning of the semester. How do you handle that?
Yeah, so the 400, with StockTrak, we have our silver, gold, and platinum accounts. And as you upgrade each of those, it costs an extra $2 or so. And so as you upgrade that, the number of trades goes from 200 to 300 to 400.
I gotcha. Okay.
So most professors are using the account service level that allows 200 trades. The futures and options classes, they're the ones that want the 400 trades, because with the futures and options, they're doing some option trades that are 4 legs. So they're burning 4 trades to enter a trade, and they're burning 4 to exit the trade.
Right. Okay.
And so the options and future classes seem to be super active, and they wanted 400. So that's
that makes sense. That makes sense.
There. But just keep in mind, if you don't like that trade limit and you want to change it, you can always email us, and we're happy to change your trade limit. So if you pick a service level that starts at 200 trades, but you only want to limit them to 100 or 50, it's no problem. Just message us and we can change that ourselves.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last point here is the real-time detailed min reporting. So as a professor, you got to know what your students are doing. So we've tried to create over the years every report that any professor has ever asked us to, make it available. So you can see class rankings, you can see how they're doing on their assignments. You can see most active traded in your class. You can drill down into each individual student and look at each of their trades and look at each of their open positions. Historical ranking is there. So you can download the historical rankings, and just about every report on our professor reporting tool has an export to Excel button, so you can do that. Okay, so for those that are new to StockTrak, you go to StockTrak.com, there's a big button that says Professors Register here. You register for free as a professor, and then when you log in, you're going to see this admin button in your main menu. So this admin button, when you hover over that, it allows you to create a session, and this is where you go to edit your session. So if you don't want to enable options and futures on day one, you don't enable it. You wait until you're ready for your students to trade that. And wait till you've had a couple lectures about those contracts. This is how you manage your assignments. And then a lot of the tutorials is back over here. And then this button here is your reporting tool. So you have admin to administer your contest and your assignments and some help. And then your reports are under the reporting tool. When you go to set up class, we do ask you what class you're teaching, what level it is, what textbook you're using. The reason we ask what textbook is a lot of the textbooks out there have coupons in them from $3 to $8 off. Depending on what textbook you're using, what you indicate when your students are registering, it'll say, hey, you have a coupon code. And if you're using the Bodie, Kane, and Marcus book, it's going to be expecting a Bodie, Kane, and Marcus coupon to get a discount. So here's the level, silver, gold, and platinum. That gold we've had to increase to 400 because so many professors have said, hey, 300 trades isn't enough. So we bumped all these things up 100. You choose the service level, and that determines the cost. And then down here, it'll say, add a buy and hold account for an extra $6. So that's all that is for that second account. And then you choose your session name, a quick description to help you remember what you're doing. The registration date, begin date, and end date. So we had to add this because some professors have come to us and say, Mark, I got students that do absolutely nothing. And then on the last day of class, they register and they do all the 50 trades I asked them to do. So they get credit because I told them to do 50 things, but I don't want them to wait till the last day. So some professors are real adamant, you have to register by September 1st or you're not getting credit for this project. So you can control your registration, begin, end date. You can control your trading period, begin and end date. Just like to have an estimated number of students, what time zone you're in. And then here's how you enable forums. We have an AI wizard that's here. And then we have express setup and custom setup. So one of these questions is going to ask about trade notes. So portfolio currency, portfolio dollar amount. Do you want to have an automatic weekly deposit? Minimum stock for buying, minimum stock for shorting. We have a trade volume rule. Here's how you enable Sharp ratio if that's important to you. I know this might be small, but just kind of showing you the general look and feel of the site. You can allow day trading or not. You can allow short selling or not. You can allow trading on margin or not. And then when you go to enable securities, you check equities. And then it's going to say, what type of commission do you want? And then we have about 50 different global equities markets you can add. And then it's going to go on, add cryptos, add mutual funds, add bonds. So there's a lot of questions, but it's a lot of customization to make it the way you want it as the professor, based on your students, based on what year they are, et cetera.
The previous page from what you're showing now, that's where the trade notes checkoff is?
I think it's underneath. It's
down
underneath.
below this?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Yeah, so it'll be down there. And then creating the assignment is the next step that it's going to prompt you to do. So we want you to name the assignment, indicate the start date and end date of the assignment, and then you check off, I want them to read the article of stock market basics. I want them to read the article, what is a stock, what is a ticker symbol? And then down here, we have some videos. And then down below those, it'll say actual trades. So you can say, I want them to trade 5 stocks during this window. I want them to trade 3 bonds and 2 mutual funds. And just so you know, with the articles that we've written, there's a pop quiz at the end. Pop quiz is just 3 simple questions just to prove that they read the article or watched the video. And if they get the questions right, then they get credit for completing the assignment. If they just read the article and don't answer the question, at the end, then they're not going to get credit for completing the assignment. So the way that they get credit is they have to answer the questions at the end of these assignments. And the questions are very simple. So if they read it, they will know the answer. So just talking quickly about the budget game. The next step in the registration flow is going to say, do you want to enable the budget game? The budget game is designed for my personal finance classes or an intro to business class. And the general idea is that the students now have a job. They might be living on their own. And the default setting is 12 months for a part-time job and then 6 months for a full-time job. The students start with $1,000 in a virtual checking account, $0 in a savings account, and they start with a credit card, and they've got a job that pays $24 an hour. And so the budget game will walk them through, your rent is this, your car payment is this, your insurance is this, your expected grocery bill, phone bill, cable bill, the 7 bills that we all pay every month, regardless if we realize it or not. And it will create a budget for them. And then it's designed that they have $500 of surplus cash. We ask them what you want to do with that extra cash. Can you commit to moving that to your savings account? They're going to say yes. And they start playing the budget game. And the budget game walks them through, okay, on the first day of work, I get a flat tire on the way to work. So I'm going to fix my tire, it's going to cost $75. How am I going to pay for it? Debit or credit? So immediately it starts them charging their credit card. And as they move through a month, random events just happen. And it really challenges them to stay on budget and make some good decisions. So be happy to have a separate conversation about the budget game if any of you are personal finance professors. So you set up your class. When you set up your class, the webpage will give you a URL that you can then send to your students. The students click on that link, and then clicking on that link, they will be registering into your class. Once they register, then they log in, they're going to see their student dashboard. So if you created an assignment, it'll be right here on top. So you might create an assignment called Getting Started. It's due October 20th. I've done 0% of what I'm supposed to do. And I see again, it's due. And then I click here to show task. And then that section expands. It'll say, read the article, what is a stock? Read the article, what is a ticker symbol? Make 5 trades, watch the video. So I'll see what I'm supposed to do. So it's a great way for students the first time just to force them to get involved and make a couple trades in the first week or 2 of classes. Once they'll see underneath the assignments, it's a trading portfolio. So if they've made trade, this is going to open up into a table of what they own, how many shares, what their profit and loss is, links to their trade notes, quick links to sell, quick links to buy more. So we've designed this pit to be just like your Robinhood account or an E-Trade account that a student might have. Okay, I think I just scrolled past something. Back up. In the open position section, the students, when they're poking around the web page, or if they go to make a trade and we see that they don't have any stocks in their portfolio, we have added a little AI wealth wizard. Some of you want to encourage students to use AI, some of you don't. So it is another tournament variable. Do you want to enable the wealth wizard or not? So if you say yes, then the screen might look like this at their open positions. We'll say, hey, there are presently no equities in your portfolio. Use our wealth wizard now that can help you. If you click on that, a dialog box opens up, and we've tested this very thoroughly on ChatGPT. We're going to ask the student, how much money do you want to spend today? How many stocks do you want to buy today? How many different industries do you want to invest in today? Are there any industries that you want to overweight in? Is there a required dividend yield for your portfolio today? And then do you consider yourself an aggressive or conservative investor? So we asked the student 7 questions, and after they answer that 7th question, the wizard says, okay, based on what you said, take this question and copy and paste it into ChatGPT to get some insight of how to start your portfolio. So we've tested this thoroughly. If you go to ChatGPT and say, what stock should I buy today? It's going to say, can't answer that question. If you ask ChatGPT, what stock is going to go up between now and December 1st? It's not going to answer that question. But if you ask ChatGPT, suppose I want to invest $50,000 today in 5 different stocks in 4 different industries, overweighted in technology, and I want my portfolio to have a 2% dividend yield, and I'm generally an aggressive investor. What should I buy today? And then ChatGPT will give you an excellent answer of, based on what you asked, here are some stocks to consider in this industry, this industry, this industry, and this is why you should consider them. And oh, by the way, this stock dividend is this stock dividend is this. And at the end, it'll say, if you buy these stocks, you will have the approximately 2.01% dividend yield that you're requesting. So it's a great way to make the students just start thinking intelligently about, how am I going to spend my $100,000, or how am I going to invest my $50,000 today? So take a look at it. And then once the students have started trading, the open position wizard will be here, and they'll be waving his little wand, and he'll say, do you want my opinion on your portfolio? Do you want my opinion on your portfolio? And if you click that, it will look at their portfolio, it'll pull out what they have, and it creates another excellent question that they can copy and paste into ChatGPT. And now it's going to say, I have 55 shares of Apple, I've got 100 shares of Tesla, I've got 30 shares of Bank of America. Am I building a well-diversified portfolio? And it'll quickly come back and say, oh no, you're overweighted in this. You should consider investing in stocks in this industry, this industry, and this industry. And here are some of the top performers last year in these industries. So I think it's a real intelligence, not a perfect system, but it's a good introduction for students of how to use ChatGPT to build a portfolio. Again, take it or leave it, turn it on, turn it off. It's up to you.
How do the from other professors have given you feedback on this? Does the student feel that with all this help in StockTrak that they don't really need to come into class? What is the response? So if you're going to ChatGPT and answering, which is great. I love that feature. I'm just wondering, what has been the behavioral aspects of the student? I don't know if you have any data on that.
Well, the professors have a love-hate relationship with it. So right now, 40% have it turned on and 60% have it turned off.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that have it turned on say, my students need help getting started. They come in and they sit there and it's like, I don't know what to do with the $100,000. I don't even know where to begin.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that this helps those students begin the process.
Mm-hmm.
60% that have it turned off say, no, I'm teaching my students how to pick stocks. I'm giving them ideas, and I want to guide them on how they get started in building a portfolio. So I don't really have the answer other than.
Though that's a good answer. I think you answered it for me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
Thank
I think
you.
it depends on your students.
Right.
Okay. And then what we try to do with StockTrak, we try to make things as easy as possible. If a student clicks on make a trade, the screen's going to pop up like this. And the first box is enter the ticker symbol. And so they just start typing the word Apple. It's a smart search, and it'll realize that they want AAPL. If they already know the ticker symbol and type in AAPL, that's fine too. And then what we do is we show them the logo of the company. There might be a couple of different companies that have the word Apple in their company name. There's a handful of stocks that have the word Ford in them and Coca-Cola. So we find that showing them the logo of the company helps the student know that they're buying the right stock. We show the last traded price, the day's range. We have a chart over here. I think this chart is 15 minutes delayed. And then we show them last price, everything that we see that or that you might find on Yahoo Finance or on E-Trade. So they can buy, sell, they can short the stock if you enabled short, they can cover the stock, they can input the number of shares here. The order type, we have market orders, we have limit orders, we have trailing stop by dollar, and we have trailing stop by percentage. So we have those order types. If you specify something other than a market order, it's going to ask you for your limit or stop price. And if you specify something other than a market order, it will ask you for the duration of the order. Do you want it to be good till cancel, or do you want it to be just for the day? So we've got a couple of different durations of the orders. They click on review order. And if you ask them to leave a trade note, it'll pop up and say, why are you making this trade today? Write your trade note here. And then they have to enter something in that trade note box, and then they can submit the order. So that's the flow of the page. Okay, the quote page, we try to make it like Yahoo Finance. There's about 25 or 30 different data points that are available for every single stock over here in the left-hand column on our quote page. If your student or if your university has Bloomberg, that's fine. If your school doesn't have Bloomberg, and we've tried to make this as helpful as possible. I'm going to skip the budget game for now. We can cover that later. With the reporting for the professors, I mentioned that the reporting tool or link is over here. When you click on that, a bunch of opportunities come up for you to pull down immediate reports. And then we even have added a create custom report. So if there's certain fields that you want on a report, you can almost drag and drop and create your own report using that tool. So the rankings are here. You can drill down and click on somebody's name. It'll open up their portfolio. It'll open up their open positions if you want to see what they're currently holding. If you want to make it a cash adjustment, you can make a cash adjustment to just one person. Or if you want to add cash, you can do a global add cash to all or subtract cash from all. So all that's available here in the reporting tool. Okay, so I'm running out of time, but just want to covered all of these unique features. And I just want to get down to this couple of neat things that have come up. So last year, this professor, Paul Cox at University of Bath, called us and said, Mark, I hate you guys. We said, why? And he says, since I started using you, my class size has doubled. And I've got twice as many students taking my classes as I had 2 years ago. Word got out that this is a fun class that teaches students about managing their money. And now my top students are now getting job offers from schools or from banks in London. So now everybody is now coming to me. They want to get in my class. I have a waiting list. And he even said that students that are non-business majors are now changing their major to be a business major so that they can take this class. And he's the one that sets up a $100 million pre-populated portfolio with a certain set, a certain client. So this class has a certain client with these needs, these descriptions. They've got this portfolio, and their job is to manage this money as if this was their client. And then he does the portfolio shocks. He treats it like it's a real client, and adds a lot to the class. And his students, he says, at the end of each semester now, the banks in London are calling him saying, "Who's your top student? I want to interview them." That's one fun one. Another thing. Yep. Sorry.
That's pretty interesting to what level he takes that to.
Yeah.
I know we're really short on time, but explain what he does. He has a $100 million portfolio, and then he interjects the shocks.
Yeah. So he has set it up so that they're managing a $100 million trust.
Mm-hmm.
The trust has certain objectives and criteria for what they're allowed and not allowed to invest in. And the firm fired their old manager, and that they're now the new manager for this $100 million. So now they got to go look back and see what the objectives were, what their preferred investments were, and then figure out what the previous manager did wrong, and start adjusting the portfolio to get more in line with what what the client wanted. And we actually have a video, because this is Tom Reddy, our salesperson last year, interviewed him for 30 minutes. So we've got this link on our page. If you want me to share that link, maybe I can do that. Share. This is Paul Cox's interview.
That would be great. Thank you.
Right. And then I want to talk about using StockTrak beyond the classroom. So not only can you sign up for StockTrak for one class, but we have site licenses and we have branded sites. And so Ithaca College has been using us for about 12 years now. So they have a branded site. Their students don't go to StockTrak.com. They have an Ithaca College site. And what they do is college students, they click here to join their class, but they run a high school event also. So they use their trading room over the summer to encourage high school business teachers and econ teachers to come in, experience what it's like to sit in the trading room. They show them a little bit of Bloomberg or what tools they have on campus. They get the teacher a $100,000 account in the Ithaca College trading simulation. They get the teachers to make a couple trades on the platform, and they say, oh, by the way, we offer your high school students scholarships. At the end of, or at every semester, we run a high school trading challenge for the high schools and middle schools in the surrounding counties. And so these teachers now go out to the classroom and they say, we're going to register for the Ithaca College Stock Trading Challenge. And by the way, the top 5 students are going to get a scholarship to Ithaca College. So now the students are excited, and they use it as a recruiting tool for the local campuses. So it's a fun dual purpose. South Carolina and Northeastern University, they've created a branded site. They've added the budget game and our stock challenge, and they run campus-wide financial literacy challenges. So one of the things that the College of Business does at this school is to say, we want to serve everybody on the campus, not just our business students. So everybody come in September 1st at 7 p.m. We're going to kick off our financial literacy education webinar. And then the students have access to this website, and they get to play the budget game. They get $10,000 in the stock game. They get $1,000 weekly cash deposit. So at the end of the semester, they're up to $20,000 in their portfolio. And so they use it as a campus-wide financial literacy program, but it also helps convert non-business majors over into business majors. So it's just a fun way to use a site license or a branded site as a recruiting tool. And I put this in bold down here. These schools also that have the site license, you can have your students have a portfolio for 4 years. So some schools are starting to do this now, that once the students take their first finance class, they say, oh, by the way, you also have a second account that's got $100,000 on it, and it's good until the time you graduate. So we want you to experience the stock market for 3 or 4 years while you're here as a student, and experience it on a virtual basis before you start risking your real money. Not everybody is active in that, but certainly the finance majors and anybody that wants to get a job on Wall Street, they're really going to pay attention to that.
Are these site licenses geared toward the size of the university or college, or is it just a flat fee?
We have two levels. It depends on how many students or accounts you expect to use over the course of the year. So as you saw earlier, StockTrak is about $32 to $34 per account. You have a site license, 500 accounts is $8,000. So that brings the price down to $16 per account. So it's basically a 50% discount for 500 accounts per year. Then Bentley College also uses their branded site for their trading room and as a recruiting tool, but they've taken it a step further. Bentley is outside of Boston, so I guess it's a somewhat wealthy area. But they've created Wall Street 101 summer camps for high school students. The students pay $4,000 to come to Bentley and spend a week in the trading room. And they learn about the trading room. They learn the first day of class, a finance professor teaches a class. The second day, it's a marketing class. The third day is an accounting class. The fourth day is a management class. And then the fifth day, the students have presentations. So they've been given a scenario also. You've got $100,000. This is your client. Over the next 5 days, I want you to build a portfolio. And on the fifth day, you're going to do a presentation, to our Shark Tank of professors. And then we're going to award scholarships at the end. So they do this, whereas Ithaca does not charge for their using their stock game for the high school teachers and high school students. Bentley charges students to come in over the summer to participate in a Wall Street 101 camp. And so they've turned their trading room into a profit center over the summer. They've got 50 students coming in paying $4,000 for a week. And they're making $200,000 a week. And they run 4 or 5 sessions over the summer.
Wow.
So they do a great job. University of Northern Iowa has a branded site, and they offer dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment to high school students. So they offer personal finance classes online. It's the same class that the college students take for personal finance, but this online course, the high school students can take it. And then the high school students that pass, they get high school credit, and they get 1 or 3 credit hours at University of Northern Iowa. They offer this free, but at the end of the semester, if the high school student passed, they now have 1 or 3 hours of college credit at University of Northern Iowa. So it's a subtle recruiting tool. Oh, I already have credit here. I'm going to go to UNI to complete my degree. So, and just another interesting way that a school is using our platform. And so, as I just said, we have our student licenses, we have the site license to StockTrak, and then the fully branded site. This is $15,000 for the fully branded site. We're somewhat flexible for smaller schools. And then the site license is a 300 user site license is $5,000. So we've got kind of 2 different tiers of the site license and for the branded site. So I'd be happy to talk to you about that on a one-on-one basis. Okay, so overshot this by 20 minutes. I appreciate all of you that stayed, but I hope it's been helpful. We're here to help. We want your students to have a great educational experience. Stock market's been going crazy, as everybody knows, so far in 2025. So no telling what's going to happen for the fall semester, but we know there's going to be volatility between tariffs and taxes and deficits. So, and federal budgets, interest rates. So a lot of things going on to make the market exciting. And we just think it's a great learning opportunity for the students to have a portfolio and live it for the next 3 months. So,
Mark, can I ask you one last question
Sure.
on the assignments very quickly? Are those assignments geared where they can run through the entire semester, or is it primarily geared front end to get the students started? Maybe they have assignments for the first 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and then that trails off and now they're fully just engaged in their stock trades.
Yeah, so you can have one assignment for week 1, just to force them to watch a couple articles, read a video, and make a couple different trades. And then you can have an assignment then that goes from week 2 to week 16 to say, okay, now that you've gotten started, and now that you know how to use the site, this is what you need to be doing over the next 15 weeks. And then there's where you put, I want you to make at least 30 stock trades. I want you to make 10 mutual or, a couple mutual fund trades, a couple bond trades, a couple options, a couple futures, a couple international stocks. So, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
It works both ways.
Okay, thank you. Mark, this has been very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dwight. And then anybody else have any questions? And I think the way that this works is that when you when I end this, I think you're going to get an email with the link to this. And if that's not the case, we'll make sure that I email it to you. But I believe your confirmation will give you a link. Actually, what happens is we have to download it and approve the webinar, and then it'll send you a link once we've downloaded it and approved the video. So I think it'll probably take 24 hours for you to get the link.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Hope to see you on StockTrak soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.